Who's ready to feel epic about democracy in Australia? Good. Go watch my video, Jack Lake, and then come back and watch this. You watched it? Now, who's ready to cringe at democracy? Oh my god, who voted these people in? Like, really? This is so lame. Recently, the Senate summoned Kevin Rudd to give evidence to an inquiry on media diversity, and holy shit, watching it I thought, is Scott Morrison actually Caligula? These senators are so dumb, I can't tell if they're horses or people. Wait, no, sorry, my mistake. They're going on about how much they love ivermectin. It must be horses. Before we start really getting into the important details, we just have to laugh at the horse senators trying to own perhaps the smartest Prime Minister Australia's ever had. And, oh no, wait, sorry, I forgot Prime Minister Spanion. Yeah, lad, everyone thought Billy Hughes was a massive hog day, but it was Spanion undercover doing a hustle in a hat. Oi, watch this, double back through time. Who does Australia's sovereignty, lad? The other day, Cory Bernardi tweeted, ivermectin will set you free. So King Kev tweeted back, what the f*** are you talking about, you dumb c***? Or something like that. Because if there's one thing you're allowed to do as media in Australia, it's make baseless accusations about Kevin Rudd swearing. Anyway, in the Senate inquiry into media diversity, this LNP senator actually tried to do a gotcha on Rudd by saying,
I'll just point out to you that in Mr. Bernardi's tweet, he did not actually mention anything about COVID-19. Now, are you aware of the use and benefits of ivermectin?
Senator, I know that we are currently in the middle of a pandemic. Secondly, it's called COVID-19. And thirdly, there is a debate about these two particular drugs that have just been referred to by yourself. And under those circumstances, therefore, as night follows day, when you have an individual such as Cory Bernardi out there promoting one particular treatment, it falls within a much broader context of the campaign waged by some through Sky Television in particular, advocating these as treatments for COVID-19.
Well, Mr. Rudd, you didn't answer the question, so clearly you're not aware of the uses and benefits of ivermectin, and I did not, in fact, mention two drugs. I only mentioned one, which was ivermectin, which was the subject of Mr. Bernardi's tweet. And you may be therefore surprised to know that ivermectin has been used for many years all around the world to treat many conditions.
Horses.
In livestock.
You're a vet.
Pets,
it's used for horses.
Humans. Excuse me, Senator Carr. I'm speaking.
I don't get it. She's a senator. Who is she trying to win over? She's not winning over COVID truthers because she's denying ivermectin's good for COVID. She's not winning over people who don't like ivermectin. Is she pandering to fucking horse doctors who are thinking, finally, someone's countering ivermectin hesitancy. There's too many naysayers out there. Yeah, look, I gotta stop with the horse jokes. They're all dumb and lazy. And then again, so Senator Sam McMahon. You know what we gotta do? We gotta get a bingo of shit coalition senators are gonna do in their pathetic attempts to own Rudd. So we've already got an attempt to corner Rudd with bizarre semantics, seriously arguing that Cory Bernardi, a Sky News host, was just out of nowhere, nothing to do with COVID, touting the benefits of ivermectin in its recommended use. It's like getting caught with a Playboy magazine and saying, I was just reading it for the articles. Apologise to him, Rudd, he was just reading. The next thing on my bingo card is to assert that Rudd doesn't like News Corp because of some personal ego tiff.
Thank you. Is this not really just a classic love story, the falling out of love, one partner, one party simply becoming disgruntled and embittered and taking that cause on further down the track? It seems as though there's a fairly lengthy campaign here, and it'd be interesting to know why.
Well, Senator, as I've said on a number of times on the public record, my experience of News Corporation is that in the period after from the 2013 election to the present, it moved from being essentially a centre-right news organisation, which would, at times of federal and state elections, usually support Conservatives, but more often than not do so, but from time to time support either Labor oppositions or Labor governments, to a case where over the course of the last decade, the Murdoch media empire in Australia has viciously campaigned for the Conservative side of politics in 23 of the last 23 federal and state elections. That was not the case prior to 2010. News Corporation has changed. It has moved from the centre-right to the far right. And its principal vehicle for doing so has been, frankly, what we now see unfolding through Sky Television. They are following the model they have used in the United States. I have seen what that has done to the American democracy. So you ask, why have I joined this campaign? In fact, had some role in leading this campaign in the last year or two. It's because Murdoch in this country has changed radically. If you speak with former editors, if you speak with former News Corporation journalists, many of whom have appeared before this committee during its last set of public sessions, they would agree with the same. That's the reason why I've engaged in this question. And that's why I believe whether you are a centre-right voter, a centre-left voter, or a centre voter, all of us in our democracy, those of us who love the Australian democracy, want there to be fair, independent, free and balanced reporting where fact and factual reporting is not conflated with opinion. The Murdoch script for the future, sir, is for opinion to become fact, and that's why we end up with the cancer on democracy that we now see.
Did. All right, just one more for fun. Let's just scrub through and...
Sorry to interrupt you there, but I just need to correct the record. I talked to the TGA.
And Senator, I will do it again. It is quack medicine.
Order.
Okay.
Order.
Okay, sorry.
Senator Rennick,
Yeah.
Senator Rennick, have you got a follow-up question?
Okay, my follow-up question is that the TGA, I talked to the TGA and I talked to a number of people in the government, in the health department.
Senator Rennick.
Nah, no more. Waste of time. It just got me questioning how Norman from John Laws became a senator.
Why are you still on air anyhow? You know, you follow... Now listen, you follow Kyle on everything. Are you going on a current affair as well?
And if you don't get that last reference, do yourself a favour and watch the link in the description and get that reference. Anyway, Kevin's testimony is just the appetizer to the main course because they also questioned the CEO of Sky News, Paul Whitaker, or Boris as he's known. What a stupid nickname, and my channel is called Friendly Geordies. Apparently he got the nickname because he's good at tennis. Like some other guy called Boris. Creative, I know. But still, I'm surprised he's good at tennis because look at this.
You've also emphasised today that the foreign company status of Google and others. Now, it is the case, and I just wanted you to clarify my own mind, News Corp is still a foreign-owned corporation, isn't it?
You get served?
YouTube is...
News Corp, is it a foreign-owned corporation?
It's on the American Stock Exchange.
That's right.
And he completely misses. One love, Senator Kim Cajway. That clip alone should give you an idea of the intellectual rigour of the people running News Corp. It'd be like if I was dumb enough to whinge that someone else was a Labor shill and I hadn't thought about the possibility of someone turning that accusation back onto me. Most of what the senators ask him about is Sky News recently getting a week-long ban from YouTube for making up different shit about COVID every second day. I think you can cure COVID if you lick ScoMo's nuts. Yeah, that should cure. I'll get into the nitty-gritty of what I think about that later, but for now, basically Boris blames Google a whole bunch and then denies there's any need to regulate Google.
And we were given less than 30 minutes notice to be told that we couldn't upload any video. So there's no appeal at that time because you are already suspended. We then sought clarification about why we had breached the guidelines. And despite having written also myself personally on August 6th to the CEO of YouTube in America, not had an acknowledgement, much less even a response.
Given what you've said, and you've said that Google doesn't accept the regulatory obligations that you accept, do you believe that it's now appropriate that there be new regulatory framework put in place that covers Google and YouTube guidelines and other such matters that you've complained about?
I'm not calling for more regulation. I'm saying there's already regulation governing these issues, which we and every other broadcaster in Australia is bound by.
Shut up. Just follow YouTube terms like everyone else. Here's where I'll address the inevitable and warranted Look, I'm a bit of a free speech extremist. I don't like anyone being banned from YouTube. That's why it's a shame that the Australian Media and Communications Authority, or ACMA, did absolutely nothing, not so much as warn Sky News that they should probably put a few disclaimers around morbidly obese men who sit on their asses all day not being the best people to take health advice from. Kevin puts it quite nicely.
A very brief summary is that after the news was publicised that YouTube had acted on a second strike policy basis, that Murdoch Sky News Australia was in breach of their COVID disinformation policy on multiple counts, The question occurred in my mind is, well, what on earth has the regulator been doing? Why are we depending on a private company to do regulators' business?
So in short, they did nothing. But it's not like they've just sat on their laurels before. I mean, ACMA blacklisted WikiLeaks for telling the truth. But if a foreign company like Sky spreads lies, and I'm not just talking about COVID, everything from climate change to whether Joe Biden's a Chinese asset, and everyone knows that's bullshit, he's clearly an Irish asset, there's not even a peep from ACMA. That's why I agree with Kevin Rudd. Just get rid of it. Why are we paying for this authority that doesn't do the very thing it's designed to do? At least YouTube is enforcing its standards consistently. That's way better for free speech than banning small creators but refusing to ban multi-billion-dollar companies like News Corp. But even then, there's a more fundamental problem with Sky News' COVID coverage that I think gets lost by everyone. The same politicians that not only fucked up the COVID response, but are encouraging cops to menace and harass Australians for believing in COVID conspiracies are the exact same ones that regularly appear on Sky News tacitly agreeing with hosts about those conspiracies. Again, I need another preface. I don't have a problem with politicians going on Sky News, but take for instance the New South Wales Police Minister David Elliott, who instructed police to lock up and harass citizens for merely repeating the same lines that a Sky News host said to him weeks before. Yes, David Elliott got a guy arrested for stalking and intimidating him for merely asking him questions about COVID in public. This is from the same guy that said to someone on Facebook, "I'll rip your head off and shit in the hole." David Elliott sounds like he's really easily intimidated. Seriously, what the hell is going on with the New South Wales Coalition? So Elliott obviously used the cover that, "Oh, this guy's crazy. He was the sort of bloke who thinks Star Wars was a documentary." Yet the guy that was alleged to have stalked him, along with making actual decent points, was just repeating stock standard Sky News talking points that David Elliott would have heard a week before as he was on COVID agitator Chris Smith's show.
You as a police minister, who is also a veteran in Australia, should understand the importance of the freedoms, right, of our Australian citizens, correct? You would agree with me, right?
Yeah, that's why we joined.
That's right. That's why you joined. That's why I joined.
The New South Wales Premier broke the hearts of business people, parents with school-aged children who are about to return, and the general community, saying an extended lockdown will somehow prevent more lockdowns.
It's not just Chris that David hangs out with, it's shit Chris as well. He's always pumping out shit like this. Chris Kenny calls out deceptive and dishonest left media on vaccine message. But according to Sky News, the guy that's responsible for one of the most politicised, crooked and authoritarian police forces in the Western world is okay. And according to David Elliott, the news company most responsible for the protesters his police force beat up all the time are Great Press. It's only in Victoria where the police force is shit according to Sky. It's true. Look, in New South Wales, no doubt government paid teachers are deliberately radicalising kids against police. In Victoria, a month or two later, police in Victoria crossed a very dangerous and scary line. Which brings me to the scariest thing about Sky News. Its business model now is fucking entrapment. Rile up certain sections of the public, convince them to break health orders, then simultaneously prop up the politicians who are the very reason those authoritarian laws are necessary or are overzealously enforced, no matter what. Actually, sorry, only if they're the Liberal Party. That's really the worst thing about the Murdoch press. They don't even bother to stand by the principles they shout out every day. As soon as someone, rightly or wrongly, follows the views espoused on Sky News to their logical conclusions, they are abandoned by Sky quicker than David Elliott abandoned Australia during the bushfires. Because it's elites that run Sky News. And they couldn't care less about someone they convinced to go to an anti-lockdown protest, and because of that, they're facing charges. Take, for instance, all the recent protests in Melbourne. Sky News and the Murdoch press are incredibly responsible for them. But do you think they're going to stand by any of the protesters that are charged? No. As soon as there's any heat at all, they'll quiet down. In fact, they're blaming the CFMEU.
Your paper, the Herald Sun, actually got dragged into it with some of the headlines. Do you think it's fair to blame your paper with the protests?
No, absolute crap, honestly. Anyone with half a brain who's read the Herald Sun in the last week will know that we have in no way contributed to, whipped up, encouraged, any other word you want to choose, these protests.
And it'd be worse if it was in New South Wales. They'd be calling for bravery medals to go to David Elliott for merely being police minister. So honestly, if we're banning an outlet that rails against authoritarian health orders and then encourages people to commit crimes, On a side note, it's fucking scary that talking to a politician whilst not rich is now a crime in New South Wales. But then that same outlet unreservedly supports the crooked politician that instructs cops to enforce those authoritarian health orders. Maybe it's good for society that YouTube steps in and says, this is enough. The point of this ban isn't about shutting down free speech anymore. It's about stopping a fucking scam. I will clarify this though, just to shut you up. I still think no one should be banned from a platform. But even if you discount the COVID entrapment model of Sky News, the Murdoch Press is the last entity on earth you should trust when it comes to free speech. Their entire operation is predicated on silencing speech that Rupert Murdoch doesn't like. News Corp buys up media entities only to eradicate them in order to further concentrate News Corp's monopoly. If Murdoch had the ability, he'd own YouTube, and I can guarantee you if Murdoch owned YouTube, it would be a lot less free platform than it is now. In fact, I'm pretty sure Rupert would have created an algorithm where you'd have to look like some beta male in an ugly suit and shit glasses to even be able to upload. Instead of flags for videos that talk about COVID, you get flagged if you didn't look like a dickhead. But wherever Murdoch further concentrates his monopoly in Australia, there's no regulatory response. Even then, maybe a better place to start would be to stop giving them welfare, because News Corp also accepts millions upon millions of your taxpayer dollars. So there you go. Every time you hear someone from News Corp whining that ABC journos take your money against your will to lie to you, remind yourself, no! Only Fredly Geordies has the moral high ground to do that. And don't you worry, I will do that. Fuck Lee Sales sucks and deserves every piece of criticism she gets. And Lee, if you're so offended, why were you in love with Bill Leak? And oh, that's right, because he never made cartoons about you. Moving on, I won't just whine about the ABC, I'll whinge about the time that in 2014, News Corp got $800 million of your tax money through cooking the books and restructuring the company and basing some of it in Bermuda. That's Murdoch stealing your money. And now the CEO of Sky News has the gall to take your taxpayer dollars, play some populist COVID charade while simultaneously dismissing the will of 500,000 Australians, the largest petition in Australian parliamentary history. In Australia, the Murdoch Press acts as an information mafia. If a politician does something against the business interests of Murdoch, they're then slandered and refused access to a large majority of the media landscape. Murdoch was the original deplatformer. And now that he's getting a taste of his own medicine, he doesn't like it. Maybe ivermectin will cure it. Like and subscribe.
Please share and comment below. Comment.